Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's show. We are going to talk about getting serious this morning. Let's get serious as the title, and it's going to explore that transition and how to transition from an accidental landlord to a really active investor. We spoke last time on the show, Karen, about accidental landlords and things and how you could become a landlord accidentally, and whether that's through inheriting a property from somebody that's passed away, or possibly you move in with your partner and you've got your own property still, or you've maybe even had your property on the market for sale and it's not sold, or and you've decided to go down the lettings route and then realised that this is probably an option you could build on and become an investor. So it's all about that transition today and getting really serious from possibly just letting one property or accidentally falling into letting to thinking about being an actual investor. Some people are quite happy to stick with just that one rental property, and that's fine. But there are many others, and it kind of starts something a bit bigger than that, and they recognise the opportunities of renting possibly multiple properties, and not least the financial security and things for the future that comes into play when you think about that. So these are all things that we're going to cover today, and we love nothing more than educating and helping landlords build a thriving portfolio and become investors. So we're going to guide you through today, and we're going to share some tips and make that leap from possibly the accidental landlord to an investor somewhat easier. So, I mean, what kind of things are we going to try and cover today, Kim, just to give people a good idea?
One of the first ones we're going to look at is reframing your mindset. Obviously, It can be a big change from just either a homeowner or to go into that, obviously, the investment aspect of it, but optimizing your existing property as well, and how to obviously utilise that to its best potential.
Yeah.
And professionalising your approach. So obviously you're turning this into a bit of a business aspect for yourself, making some money there. So obviously you need to have a wee look at that side of it as well, as setting a clear strategy and goals.
Yeah, you need to have a goal and a plan. And
definitely. If you're planning on embracing this for like a long-term aspect as well, it's good to have a bit of a plan to it, and obviously goals and what you want to achieve from it. And lastly, we'll be looking at embracing continuous learning. So, I mean, we know every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day. It's a continual learning curve. Yes, definitely. So you really need to embrace that. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's a really important one. So these are the shifts that will give you the tools to build a robust and endure that buy-to-let business that drives a long-term security and prosperity for yourself, your children, and beyond. So, Richard, why don't you start us with reframing your mindset?
Yeah, reframing your mindset. I mean, as a big part, you need to have that right mindset and the right goals and things in place. And if you have fallen into letting, as we say, accidentally, then you'll probably have that shift in your mind and think, oh, wait a minute, and the light bulbs start to go off, and then it's finding the right people to get you on the right path and educate you and things as well. Accidental landlords could lack that structure of like a formal business setup as such. And of course, it comes with some legal responsibilities when you are letting a property and indeed managing a portfolio. But it's often a reactive response to tasks and things, rather than that proactive, enterprise and things. You need to be really proactive towards your buy-to-let business and the management of your properties and things, rather than just responding to things as they come in. It's always good to think ahead and have that mindset. Right, let's think about what the future holds, and you could do risk analysis from your investments and hedge yourself against what the future holds. So definitely a shift in that mindset and transitioning to that active investor, and it does require a shift in perspective. And these are things like clarifying your growth goals. If I said you've got goals, like clarifying that growth to achieve those goals. Is your goal, are you aiming for multiple properties? Do you want to increase monthly income, or are you more interested in possibly the long-term capital growth of a property? Setting that vision really keeps your focus quite sharp on what you are trying to achieve. And if you feel deviated from that, always try and bring yourself back to your original, like, this is what I started out to do this for, because it's easy to get lost in it all. And as they pile on legislation and other things, you could feel a bit overwhelmed and think, oh, why am I doing this? It's like, why is it? It's not all worth it. And it is for the most part. I mean, I'm not going to speak for everyone, and each individual person and journey is different. But on the whole, that's what I generally see happening to people that, they're all wired and fired and really excited about their investment journey, and things change along the way, and, they maybe get things wrong, they maybe hit a bump, and it could really set you back and sometimes totally discourage you completely. But having the right people around you and the right knowledge could keep you on that track to achieving the goals that you originally set out to achieve, basically. And educating yourself is such a big part of that. Kerin, we know education as letting agents and managing agents and things is so important because things do change so much. I mean, we continually learn, and we've had to pass qualifications to actually operate as letting agents and things. So there's a lot involved in that. And I think in time that'll come for self-managed landlords as well. They'll have to have some certain level of education and qualification to actually manage and look after their properties. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think?
I do. I mean, we have so many landlords that maybe aren't as clued up as they do need to be when it comes to this side of it. It is, I mean, as we show, it is a full-time job. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot to keep on top of. And as you said, it's better to be proactive than reactive in these situations as well. So making sure you are keeping up to date with it all. And like you say as well, bad experiences can completely throw it off for you and just make you say that you don't want to be doing that anymore. But it is a really lucrative and obviously beneficial journey to be on, to obviously give you that bit of extra income. So making sure that you're doing it right and speaking to the right people is obviously key in this side of it to make that journey worthwhile for you. I remember speaking to a landlord, he's like, oh, I've heard all these horror stories. And I was like, yeah, people are going to tell you the horror stories, but they don't tell you the good stories.
They don't tell you the good ones. Yeah.
And I was like, I can assure you, I've got a lot of better ones than I do bad ones. So it is speaking to the right people and having that right mindset for it.
Yeah, and not only, sorry, should I say, from like a qualification point of view, even just that general education, like learning about the market trends and the local market from your agent, and having the right mortgage broker or financial advisor, giving you the right financing options and things, and what properties make good investments. Is it a 3-bedroom house in this area? And if you'll get the family unit, you've got really good schools and think, and this would be your target audience. And once you get educated on that, like I say, by your local agents, you'll become familiar with the areas and what properties are good and what areas and what will attract certain tenant demographic and things. And then you start to build your own knowledge, and then you start to become a wee bit an expert in your own right. So, and that then boosts your confidence, your ability as an investor and things as well. So all these things go hand in hand with running a successful buy-to-let investment portfolio. Assembling that trust and having a trusted professional team, whether that's contractors, your agent, your, like I say, brokers and things as well. And tradespeople is a really good one for making your portfolio the best it can be, because when you've got property which is in good shape and good repairing standard, and it attracts better tenants, you get better income, you have happier tenants, you've got longer tenancies, which is obviously a higher occupancy rate, which ultimately is one of your should be your key indicators for performance of your portfolio and things. And it just makes everything a lot less hassle-free and a lot more stress-less, should I say, which is sometimes one of the big discouraging factors when things go wrong and tenants aren't happy and landlords have to deal with them out of hours and all these things, and it leaves a bad taste in their mouth and just ruins the whole experience. Because it could be, between landlord, tenant, agent things, it could be a really good experience if it's done correctly, like you said, Kerin, if you do it correctly and have the right knowledge. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss a wee bit more in detail as we go through later sections, but adopting a kind of commercial mindset and approach to buy-to-let investment will lead to those wise decisions and better returns and a solid long-term business. And it does involve everybody involved in that, including the tenant, landlord, everybody feeling content and happy within their position in that. Because without happy tenants and tenants in place, you don't have a business. So your duty of care is really important to them as well, because they are your customer, they are the landlord's customer. The landlord's our customer, but we also have a duty of care as agents to tenants as well. I've been asked that before. because obviously I always talk about, tenant welfare and duty of care for tenants and everything, and I take it quite seriously. And a potential new landlord says to me, so who's your client? Is it me or the tenant? I'm like, you are the client, but we will always hold that duty of care to the tenant, and that's in your best interest as well as our client to keep you and your investment viable. So that's an important thing. But it was funny I got asked that question, and I've been asked it before, but I got asked it quite recently. I think we're just clarifying because I was quite pro tenant, and quite rightly so as an agent, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, and like you say, obviously, if you've got a happy tenant, rent's coming in on time as it should be, the property's being looked after, so that is going to make it a more viable investment for you.
Yeah, definitely. So that's obviously the mindset. And if you accidentally become a landlord and then start to think about investing and buy to let and things, then you're already on that journey. So find the right people that will get you in the right mindset and the right mind frame to build that portfolio and start your buy to let journey, but have clear goals as well. If you have that property or you have just one property and you're starting to feel like that, let's talk about optimizing that existing property. Kerin, run us through some points on that.
So if your current rental property is the start of your investment career, reviewing its performance will jumpstart your skills by adding future buy-to-lets to your portfolio. So like we say, if you do this right, it can be really lucrative, but you have to look after it. Not only look after your tenants, but look after your investment aspect of it as well. So you can do this by conducting rent reviews. So get your property valued for sales and lettings, check if the rent reflects the current market rates, and consider any improvements that could increase your income. Now, what I will say on the rent increases is obviously make sure you're doing them consistently, but you can only do them once a year. Yeah. And your tenant has to get 3 months notice for that as well. So if you are doing your rent reviews, make sure you're following these guidelines, and they have to get written notice done in the correct format as well. There is paperwork that they have to be issued for this. So if you're doing your rent reviews, you can't just send your tenant a text saying, I'm putting the rent up. We also use Rent Calculator Scotland as well, which helps us work out making sure the rents are going to be affordable for the tenant. If you've got a good tenant, putting the rent up too much can push them out. So making sure you're weighing up, obviously, the monetary amount that you are going to be doing it, so it's going to be viable for yourself, but also still going to be affordable for your tenant as well. And as I say, running it through Rent Calculator Scotland to make sure if they do end up taking it to the rent assessment officer, you've got your best case there and you've not wasted your time by doing this by setting a rent that's just ridiculously high.
Yeah, let's just talk about that for a second, about the rent increases. So so the rent calculator is a really good tool. Is that on the Rent Service Scotland website? Is that through them?
So you can literally just Google Rent Calculator Scotland and it will come up. Make sure you also use the Scottish one, because if you're in Scotland, that's right on there. But you can literally just Google that and it will come up for you. You don't need to go into any separate websites. You can just pop it straight in and click right onto it.
Yeah, so, and at the moment, up to 12%, I think is the max you could do.
Yeah.
12%. Now, as of next week, that's going to change. Then the cap on 12% will no longer in place. So you can, in essence, set your rent at whatever you like. But the tenant does have a right to contest that if they feel it's too high. And I think it's better to be realistic and do these incremental increases over a period of time at these 12-month points, rather than trying to jump up your rent, hundreds of pounds at a time or something like, that's not going to work. It's going to put your tenant in a position where they will probably want to leave. They also have the right to go to Rent Service Scotland and challenge that and contest it. And more than likely, if it's unreasonable and it's not in line with, if it's the market rent or it's quite a big jump, even if it is in line with the market rent, but then a very big jump for the tenant in the current situation, the likelihood is it will be reviewed back to a more reasonable level. But I think if you're doing this properly, it should be done. I mean, rent increases are something that's been pushed upon us by the government. It's something that we're going to have to do now. But I think to keep in mind the tenant situation and as I say, a bit of duty of care for the tenants, at the same time, do rent increases at the 12 months, do them incrementally, and stick there or thereabouts, the 10 to 12% at a time. And over a period of time, it should stay in line with how things increase within the market values anyway. But big jumps in rent increases is a it's a bit of a risky business, to be fair, especially if you're dealing with your buy-to-let portfolio. You could push tenants out the door and then have a void period, have costs for relay, all these other things, when really all that cost and time and period of vacancy will offset the rent increase you were trying to implement in the first place. So the commercial reality of it doesn't really add up. So think about that. And if you're not sure, speak to somebody that does.
Exactly. Even we've got ones in, it's maybe been like £20 the rent's been increased by, and it's still going to be money that's going to obviously benefit the landlord, but it's still something that's affordable for their tenant as well.
Yeah.
We don't want to be ripping people off with stupidly high rents at the end of the day. But even when we come across landlords that we don't maybe agree with the value they would like to put the property on, we have to have that honest conversation with them and realign the expectations, because ultimately if you do have a property that's going to be on too high, you're either not going to get the interest that it should get, and you're not going to get your selection of tenants that you would have had if we'd gone on at the right price for it. And likewise as well, you're not going to get a tenant that probably is going to stay as long, because they're going to realise the rent is more than what they could be paying elsewhere.
It's not sustainable. And we had this conversation, I think it was just yesterday.
Yeah,
and it's something that we keep coming up against. There's different platforms and things out there where basically the rents could just be made up. And in certain areas and things, it's not realistic. But landlords are looking at these other properties and taking them as comparable rents to what they have in there, but they're not. And it makes then our job is then to demonstrate why they're not. One area that's quite difficult and always has been with price point. I was in St Andrews yesterday, and people get so confused, and because rents are all over the place.
St Andrews is its own bubble of.
It's its own little market. I mean, it certainly is. But landlords are a bit confused, and you could look at one property that has, I don't know, say a 3-bedroom property here and a 3-bed property there, and the rents are completely different. But what you need to remember is some have HMO licenses and they price it per room, and there's a lot of things to take into consideration. HMOs do cause that disparity and a bit of confusion in the St Andrews area. So it's always good to have an agent who knows the area and knows the properties and knows why these prices might be different, and price the property appropriately that's going to be sustainable, especially for a longer term let. But we're starting to see it right across the rest of Fife, where we are, Kerin, where rental prices are all over the place, and it's nothing to do with HMO and influence or anything. And it's just because the expectations of people has changed, and obviously people are feeling the pressure from additional costs and things, but you still can't set unrealistic price points that are not in line with the market conditions. And if you want a viable and lucrative investment portfolio, set your rents that are realistic and sustainable. It's probably my best advice.
And I mean, the prime example of that is obviously the one that we were speaking about this week. It's been overpriced. I don't know where they came up with the value for it, but the proof is in the pudding, because it had been on the market since September 2024. And this property is in an area, it's a house, it's in an area that, I mean, we have them let within about 2 weeks, if that, usually. So you can tell that it's been overpriced and you're not getting the bites. And realistically, that's months that property's been sat there without any income coming in for it. Whereas if it had been priced right, it would have had somebody in within, we'll say, an average of 6 weeks for somebody to move in. Then that's all the rent that they've lost out on. Whereas if they'd priced it correctly, they would have had the rent coming in from the start. And so again, we have some landlords that is like, look, it's been sitting for a wee while, maybe we need to review the rent on it. And they're just not up for it at that stage, unfortunately. And it's trying to explain to them that if we have it priced right, you're going to be getting income coming in for it. Whereas if it's going to be sat there, you're not getting anything for it.
Yeah. I mean, that one you said listed September, so September, October, November, December, January, February. We're at the end of March. There's 6 months. That's a 6-month void.
And as I say, in an area that properties go within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So again, really, if you're should have had a conversation with them months ago about that price point and realised that it's not set correctly.
So if you have an agent that's telling you, and they have, I mean, obviously when we go out, we have our comparisons and we can demonstrate where we've gotten our rental figures from. So if you have an agent that is telling you something, go with their advice. This is a professional. We're not just here to try and obviously at the end of the day, the more rent that we get, the better for a landlord. But ultimately, that might not be the right decision for them. We need to obviously make sure things are priced accordingly. So if you have an agent giving you advice, listen to it.
But I think when valuing a property, and it's the same for sales and lettings, if you're being provided with a valuation for your property, ask them for the evidence about where they got that. They should always have the evidence to back it up, comparable sales, comparable lets, demonstrate their knowledge of these lets or sales in the area. Your agent should have all this and be able to clearly just say, right, well, this is how I come to this valuation because of this, and it should make sense, and it should justify the price point that they're at, and not just let's pluck this out the air. So valuing is a really important part of the process, because if you get it wrong, you're off on the wrong foot right from the get-go.
And that's the thing. Usually, I mean, the market is a clear test of that. Within the first couple of weeks, you usually know if the price is right or not, if you're getting the right amount of interest. Obviously, the higher end properties, it's going to take a bit longer. But if anything under £1,000, for example, if you've not got the right amount of interest in those first couple of weeks for it, it's usually, when people aren't going over the door, it's usually because the price is wrong. It's different if you've got people in and they're viewing and they're not progressing, then maybe you need to have a look at what's going on in the property. But if they're not even stepping foot in, it's usually your price point for it.
But
obviously, So taking into effect, obviously, your rental costs, making sure that your yield and return on investment, which is your ROI. So you've to factor in all these expenses and determine your property's performance. You can use it to fund your next investment, or should it stay in your portfolio? These are all things that you need to be considering.
Yeah.
And as we've said, analysing your current and local market. So assessing whether any previous or upcoming neighbourhood developments will influence the demand for rental homes in that type of area, and also what type of people are going to be moving into those properties as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, think about the tenant demographic. Like I say, if it's certain areas and it's 2 and 3 bedroom houses aimed at that young family or family unit because it's next to the school, or is it a nice flat or apartment which has got good commuter links and a good social aspect nearby with pubs and restaurants, you're going to be looking at working professionals, and think about your target audience. Yeah.
So a well-optimised property gives you a strong financial foundation to build on. And if rent increases are appropriate, as we say, use advising the rent log. So this is obviously, again, one that we've done, so you'll be able to find the link for that. So as I say, advising the rent blog. If you
that's linked. It's linked in the blog attached to this, so you could click through and raising the rents is a really interesting and quite helpful one, and it goes into that in a lot more depth than we can in this show. So click through and you'll get the video like this, or you'll get the podcast, or indeed you could just read the blog on there as well.
So that'll help you manage the process without losing a value to tenant, which obviously, as we've touched on, is very important.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah, definitely. So I mean, these are all important points about optimizing that existing property you've got. As I say, if it's something that you've come across accidentally as a landlord, or you may just be sitting with one property and thought, I want to expand on this, then that's when you start to think, right, okay, I need to start thinking about my strategy and setting a clear strategy and having goals. And having clear objectives is really the essential part of any business in order for it to grow. And the direction and motivations come from laying out your rental portfolio goals while following that clear strategy, and that will make your plans reality ultimately in time, in theory, if you do things right about. So really define your financial targets as something. Decide how much income you are looking to generate, what level of capital growth you're aiming for from your portfolio over a time, and when you'd like to reach that point and things as well. Quantify it and put timescales on things as well. That's so important. Research potential investment areas. Like I said, certain areas might be more lucrative than others depending on what your kind of setup and property type that you're aiming to purchase. Speak to your agents and identify, not just the towns and areas, but the actual streets. Things change from street to street. Actually, if you've got a really long street, it could change from one end to the next. To be fair.
One side to the other. Fife is so pockety, and we've covered this. But whenever we're speaking to investors, we say to them, look, if you see a property you're interested in, send us the link to it, and we'll give you advice on obviously the rental value and the area. Because as we say, Fife is very like from one street to the other can completely differ. So I mean, we've got a lot of really good areas in here, but I mean, even the best streets can back onto ones that's maybe less desirable. So, or even just having that reputation. I mean, we've got a street and it's got loads of properties in it, and people are like, oh, that's the area has not got the best reputation for itself, and it's like it maybe didn't, but it is turning around and it's getting a lot better. So it's even trying to sort out people's misconception about some areas now that, and I mean, ultimately in the future, it's so close to the train station now. We've got a lot of really nice properties in there, which is now attracting good tenants for it and is going to bring the area up as well. So yeah, making sure as well you've got an area that maybe people don't have that preconception about, because it can make it a wee bit trickier for you to try and find a good tenant if they already kind of have their mind made up about that area. So checking street to street.
And we've got quite a few mainline train stations throughout Fife now, which connect right into the cities. And we've also got, well, the A92 runs right through the heart of Fife as well. So commuter links are quite good for having that kind of semi-rural, relaxed lifestyle. But if you work or commute into the cities, it's quite easy now. Definitely. So yeah, and only a local agent with a lot of experience of the local area will know right down to the street type thing. So yeah, definitely speak to people, and then that's where you could then find out which have strong rental demand, which will have really good capital appreciation over time. You know, so and these are all things that will ultimately make your investment portfolio a lot more viable and lucrative over time. And I said there about exploring the different rental sectors. Do you know, what would you prefer your portfolio to be? A lot of people like to diversify quite a lot. Some people like to be quite niche and perfect it and have I just want to concentrate on family units, or do you know, I want just professional couples, or do you know, they might explore students and things and do the HMO thing, and people like to kind of niche it, or some people like to have a mix. I mean, it's not something that has to be one size fits all. Each individual situation is different, and whatever you feel comfortable doing is fine, as long as you're making a viable investment choice and you've done the risk analysis and hedged yourself against potential things down the road with whatever investment choice you do, then it's fine. So think about your tenant groups and things and what appeal depending on the area. And again, that comes back to your agent, what area commands from interest from what tenant group, basically. When you're purchasing as well, borrowing wisely, and that's where the risk analysis things comes into play. But borrowing wisely is really something that you need to think about. Using whole of the market independent brokers is probably the best way to do that, rather than just your local bank. The key there is that they could find the best mortgage deals from big high street names, and also the specialist buy-to-let lenders that won't come through to you, just like for the high street banks and things. You'll find that speaking to these kind of brokers will get you the best deals. And if you don't have those connections, your agent things or your an investment specialist and things will be able to point you in the right direction of that. So borrowing is obviously a really important part of your investment strategy, so make sure it's done correctly. And I said think about the future and don't just concentrate on the now all the time. Think ahead and possibly devise that exit strategy, even if you never have to use it. But then also things can change, and you might have completely think you've completely made yourself risk averse, but you never know. So always have that exit strategy. Will you sell? Will you hand it over to someone else? Or will you pass on the reins, or will you completely pass the whole portfolio on at some point if need be? Think about that. Just have those plans in place. There is, and I think if you've been in that position where you've had one property and then built it, or you already have a portfolio, there's something undeniably, exciting about writing down your perfect outcomes, your business plan, and being really proud of them and things. So allow yourself to kind of dream and have big aspirations. Sometimes people might think they might shy away from setting really, really big goals. But even if you don't achieve the actual big goal, your journey to that, you'll achieve quite a lot. So don't be scared to kind of have big dreams and really get stuck in about it. And just go with whatever your mind comes up with to a certain point, as long as it's logical in a sense. But yeah, having big dreams is how you get to your goals and things ultimately. So I think it says reach for the stars and hit the moon on the way down, or whatever it is. Yeah. So don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, your ambition will get you far, but obviously making sure you speak to the right people is what will make it work.
Yeah, don't just do pie in the sky stuff, obviously, but a big dream, definitely.
Yes, it's good to have obviously those goals to be able to strive towards.
Yeah,
But
goals and a clear strategy, definitely.
But if this is a route you want to go down, professionalising your approach is one of those things that's going to get you far in it. So growing a rental portfolio isn't just about bricks, mortar or tenants. It's a real business. And obviously we know that.
Yeah.
And to have a business that works for you instead of the other way around you need to get the basics right. So obviously this is something that you're going to be going down the route of. It's a big process to go through. It can be made easy if you're doing it right, but obviously you have to know the right steps to do so. So deciding on the structure you want to go down, you could continue to grow as a private landlord, but setting up a limited company might prove more tax efficient. We've seen the benefits to going in a limited company, and if you don't think about this in the first place, it can have more tax implications for you going forward. Obviously, Richard, you've been dealing with this just recently, and landlords that are feeling the implications of obviously having to do that changeover from having it as a private landlord to a limited company because they've not done that in the first place.
And it's like I think the one recently, they've got 5 or 6, and they've done them all in their own name, and now they've realised, and they've taken the decision, and they're having to take the hit on the capital gains tax, but they're moving these properties from their own name across into the limited company. Now, if you've only got 1 or 2, it might not be the right option. It might be fine just to keep them in your own name, depending on what your income and things are and your tax. But do you know, if you're going to build, anywhere maybe 3 to 5 and upwards, definitely look at the buy-to-let portfolio being in a limited company rather than your own name, because you will feel the tax benefits of that. But like I say, if you've not done that and you've already got them all in your own name, you're really going to need to sit down with your accountant and things and look at the financial implications of that, because you will have to pay capital gains tax to move them across and ultimately sell them to your limited company.
So as you say, there can be benefits to just doing it in the first place and setting them up in your limited company if you do plan on growing a portfolio for it.
Yeah.
But if you do plan on having quite a few properties, or even if you've just got one, growing your network is going to be key as well. So developing a strong relationship with local estate agents, reliable contractors, and if you're self-managing, you'll need essential professionals like a solicitor and an accountant. So obviously there's help out there, but you need to speak to the right people, and making sure you are speaking to the right people is key. But another one is getting organised. So either hire a skilled agent to manage your growing portfolio, or create a solid system for communication with your tenants, for carrying out maintenance and collecting rent. Now, obviously, we see the benefits of having it managed. It takes away, if you're, for example, if this is like a side hustle for you and you've got all this, your portfolio growing, you maybe want to be focusing more on actually the growing aspect of it rather than the managing aspect of it. The managing side of it can take up a lot of time. And it happens as well. Things happen at the worst times usually, like if you're on holiday, maybe your boiler stops working, or it can be late at night. I've had landlords that have come to us because they've just been fed up of getting those late phone calls at nights when maybe their tenant's gotten home, and because they know it is just a self-managed landlord, sometimes they can take a bit more leeway with that, I would say, and just thinking they can phone them at any time. Whereas obviously if you've got an agent, there's that structure, there's that set out expectation, and you're not having to deal with it as well. Even that troubleshooting side of it can be a bit awkward sometimes. So having an agent in place obviously takes away all that, that time-consuming aspect for it, and just the stress that can be involved in it as well. Or even if your tenant stops paying rent, again, that can be another really awkward conversation for a self-managed landlord. Whereas for us, it's second nature. It happens. We deal with it. So it can be a lot easier having to take away that personal aspect and then be able to focus it as an investor aspect instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That professionalising your approach is like having an insurance policy against the unexpected. And with your well-oiled operation, you'll minimise hassle-free firefighting and save your time to expand.
Yeah, the firefighting aspects just makes it so difficult if you're in that position. And that, like you say, is what a lot of landlords come to us with, and they just feel like they're swimming against the tide. And things have gotten on top of them, and they're continually dealing with things. And like you say, I think sometimes when it's a self-managed landlord and they try and build up a really good rapport with the tenant, which is fine, but then sometimes the lines could get a bit blurred. Whereas like it's went from a professional relationship to, and it's like you're getting calls and messages at all hours just for minor things that should only be left for working hours as opposed to out hours. So yeah, and it's setting those clear boundaries while having that good relationship. Sometimes that can be difficult when it's one-on-one with a landlord and a tenant. So yeah, I mean, mediation and having those skills as an agent is something that we've learned, and we've actually done training on to be able to do that properly. And that is what brings us on to the last thing we're going to cover today, and that's embracing that continual learning. And with the rental market and with buy-to-let and things and lettings law, it's rarely static. Do you know, it rarely stands still for a long period of time at all. So it's really vital to keep up with the evolving legislation, the tenant trends, the continual like success of things that come through, and not to mention avoiding those penalties and fines that do come with not doing things correctly or not abiding by the legislation. And there's a few sensible steps to do that. I mean, it's not rocket science. It can feel a bit overwhelming, but things like the Scottish Association of Landlords and Landlord Accreditation Scotland, these are all things you could join. They will keep you up to date and abreast of as the legislation as and when it changes quite well. So it's always sensible to be part of one of these kind of bodies, or attend, industry events and seminars, and network with people. The amount of people you could learn stuff from, other investors. You can pick up really valuable tips and insights from people, their experiences as professionals within the industry. And you'd be amazed at just the nuggets of things that you'll pick up that could help you along the way, especially if you're self-managing it. Because it could feel a bit like a minefield, and in essence it is, if you're uneducated to the fact. Reading books and reading articles and things that are obviously in relation to property investment help you expand your knowledge and stay ahead of the market and how things are moving. And if you do have a local agent or people like ourselves that are putting out content like this, ask us if we've got any recommendations of things to attend. I've just run through quite a lot actually, but things to attend, groups to join, books to read. There's lots of things that we could probably advise you on, or wherever you are in Fife or indeed the rest of the country, if you've got a good agent who's involved in property investment, they'll be able to give you some good advice. Online forums, that's another one actually. Joining online forums and communities. Now be aware of this. I know social media is such a good thing, and we're on social media right now, streaming this onto platforms and things, and it can be such a good platform to learn and pick up things from. Engage with other landlords, engage with other professionals within the industry, share experiences and insights, and just create a circle to connect with and like-minded kind of investors and entrepreneurs and things. But just be careful about who you're learning from. It's like, if people are providing you with information, what's their credentials and what's their credibility within the industry and in their own right? Feel free to explore that and ask people like, okay, that's fine. I'm quite interested in what you're covering here, but where are you getting this from? What experience do you have from a standpoint? I've been a lettings agent for nearly 15 years coming up, which makes me feel really old, and I'm not. But it's like, where are they drawing their experience from? You don't want to be taking advice with somebody that's only been at it for a year when that's roughly about the same as you. So just be careful where you pick that up from. And again, it's like the valuation thing for your property. Get them to give you the evidence of what they've done and where they're providing you the education from. It's like an experience is one of the main things. If people have got experience, they could teach you quite a lot. So I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, there's a lot of good people out there to be speaking to, but social media does make it quite easy for the wrong people to also be out there. And like you say, you don't know where someone's maybe got their information from, and do you want to be learning maybe the wrong information, or just even like maybe a bit misguided. So making sure it's the right people you're speaking to and have that knowledge behind them as well. I mean, as we say, we're forever learning, but we still have that base of knowledge that's come. I mean, like you say, you've been doing it for years. That's over 8 years now that I've been doing it, and we're still learning. And if you get somebody that says they know it all, that's a red flag in the first place, because nobody does. There's always new legislation coming out. There's always ways to sharpen your perspective in the way you're looking at things, or maybe enhance things. So making sure that you're with somebody that at least has that opening for learning, and they're not just spouting off maybe things that they've picked up along their short journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, be a learn-it-all person, not a know-it-all. And it might come across sometimes when we are on here that but we definitely are not. There is so much to always learn and pick up and hone your skills. But I would like to think that we'd be able to provide people with some good information and knowledge to get them on the right track to whatever their goals may be. And I think one of the most important things for me as legislation and staying legally compliant and things for your business. Do you know that you could be part of SAL and LAS and things, and they will keep you up to date. But keep an eye on the Scottish Government's website as well, and it'll give you updates on the current legislation as and when it's put in place. You know, if you're in England, the renters' right bill and thing is coming into effect in England just now. That's such a big thing for them down there to keep an eye on and make sure you're doing that correctly. If you're in Scotland and Wales and things, continual learning really helps you stay ahead of that curve and maximise your investment with all the other legislation that comes into place. But be careful sometimes. It is quite, because sometimes, like the renters' right bill, people might think, oh, but that's nothing to do with Scotland. So just be careful that you're looking at the right legislation. And that's why if you check the Scottish Government's website and be part of the Scottish Association of Landlords and groups like that, you'll have the correct information and provided to you and how to act upon that and not get mixed up with legislation that's south of the border and things as well. But
on that topic on compliance, obviously, like you say, the difference between England and Scotland as well. And I mean, we were just on a training session just last week, and they were obviously saying, are you prepared for your EICR renewals that are coming up this year? And we were both like, we've already done all of ours, because we were ahead of the curve. So for Scotland, your EICRs came into place in 2017. So we already hit that 5-year renewal phase back in 2022. So when they were talking about it, it's like, well, we've already been there. We've done our initials, we've done our renewals, and it was a lot easier because we're now obviously just able to chip away at them. I mean, it'll be fun again in 2020. Well, that'll be 2027. They'll come up again for the bulk of them. But so the difference even just in the two countries between Scotland and England, but more even, obviously there's a lot of legislation out there for keeping yourself right as a landlord, but obviously even just the smaller things like making sure your properties are kept compliant, setting reminders for your safety renewals, whether that's your gas safety annually, your EICR 5 years, even your EPC. If your property becomes vacant and you've not got one in date, you'll need to get that redone. Fire and smoke alarms, your Legionella. There's so many different safety certificates that you have to keep on top of. So making sure that you are keeping on top of them and setting reminders for yourself, so you can then obviously give yourself an appropriate amount of time to get in contact with your tenant, get your trades in to get the renewals done. Your tenant might be working, they might have kids, they might have a busy schedule. So making sure you are giving yourself an appropriate amount of time to give your tenant notice to get access as well. And I mean, for electricians, they're so busy, they're so far and few between, especially with them. So making sure that you're giving yourself time to get the right trades in as well. They can have busy schedules. So that is such a key thing. And doing your inspections, making sure that your property is still got its smoke alarms where it should be, your carbon monoxide detector still where it should be, and they're all still in date as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that might all seem like, something that's quite a lot of effort for you to do. And if you do feel like that, then speak to an agent about doing it for you. I mean, we're happy to, if anybody's watching, to jump in the comments or message me direct and have a wee chat about anything that we've covered today with regards to building a portfolio, the management of your property. But if you're not in Fife or you're elsewhere, I mean, there's lots of good agents out there. Speak to an agent who could manage it for you if you are not prepared to really put in the effort and build up that knowledge and how, I mean, ultimately, if you're building an investment portfolio, this is what you need in place for it to be a really viable and lucrative investment. So, I mean, it pays you dividends to be up to date with the knowledge and having everything compliant. But compliance is so important. And for me, it's a big part of the professionalizing the industry and things as well. And that's where the education and the qualification that we have to do as agents and things comes into play. And I think it's so important. And in time will probably come into play for self-managed landlords to a certain degree, maybe not as much as us, but they will have to be educated and qualified to a certain level, I would imagine, at some time in the near future. Otherwise, they'll have to use an agent, which, as I say, I think is such a good thing to professionalise the industry for the benefit of landlords and tenants.
Yeah, it just keeps everybody right and saves landlords. I mean, you can get some hefty fines, and even if you do things wrong, I mean, Salad sent out a letter just obviously stressing the importance of like checking the batteries in your CO detectors, because a landlord had one that the batteries had run out, and when they did have a carbon monoxide leak, the CO detector didn't go off, and they were really lucky it got caught in time, because I mean, their tenants could have died.
Yeah.
So it is so important, not even to avoid fines, but to avoid the serious implications that keeping your property like not compliant can have. So it can be a lot, it can be a full-time job. So if you don't have the time for that, there are agents like ourselves out there that will look after it for you and keep you compliant, so you can just focus on getting your rent coming in and what you want to do with that, and obviously making it a business for yourself as opposed to a time constraint.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good advice. And if you are ready to unlock that potential of, you know, a thriving rental portfolio and transitioning from that possibly accidental landlord or somebody who just has one property to an active investor, then it's much easier with the positive and professional and proactive approach that we've covered today, and a managing agent can do that by your side. So if you want to speak to myself or Kerin or anyone about that, then please reach out to us. If you're looking to increase your portfolio of rental homes, then that's something that we also do as well. And I'd be happy to give people advice on, you know, areas and tenant demographic and, you know, best even streets, as we say, Kerin, to buy in.
Importance of your local agent, you know what street to go in. And we are both local, we both know the area in Fife really well. And I mean, gosh, we've seen it's rare that I'll drive along a road that I've maybe not been on or not seen before. And probably the same for you, Richard. I mean, we cover the whole of Fife, where it can be from one end to the other. So we see it all, we've been around it all. So if you do need advice, we're right here.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Kerin. That was really good this morning. Really informative. I hope it was for everybody else. Any questions, you can, of course, always jump in the comments or message us direct. If you're on the rerun, still jump in the comments. We still get them. They come through, and we'll try and answer everyone as best we can. And we'll leave it there today. Thanks very much, Kerin. Thanks for everybody for watching, and jump in the comments today. And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.